What's up, guys, and thank you for watching this video. Hope that you are going to enjoy it. What we are looking at are two of my quad. This is my 3.5-inch freestyle drone, and this is the Power 20. It is one of my Cinewoop. I do have a couple of them. Now, those two drones, even though they may look different to you guys, they are very similar. They both have 4 motors. They both use a flight controller. Both have a ESC, and they both have a VTX. Except for the size, that this one being a 3.5-inch and this one being a 2-inch. There is another major difference about those two drones, and that is the way the motor are set up. On my freestyle drone, the motor are set up in what we call a pusher configuration. Some people also call it a tractor configuration. And what that is that we have a motor on top of our arm and the prop is on top of the motor. As with everything, there is some pro and negative about this configuration. I'm not really going to go into that because myself, I don't really understand what are the pro and negative of the pusher configuration. But one thing I have to say, if you are new to the hobby, is someone you've been flying for a couple years like I do, this is the main configuration for most of our drone. This configuration is used on freestyle drone, on racing drone, and on long range drone. Now, if you look at the Power 20, we can clearly see that the configuration used on the Power 20 is different than a puller configuration. This is what we call a pusher configuration. And what it is, you have your motor under your arm and the prop is under the motor. And this actually didn't used to be the main configuration for Cinewoop. When Cinewoop first came into the hobby, they were mostly using puller configuration, just like the freestyle drone here. But over the last couple of years, most of them have moved to a pusher configuration, and even the DJI Avatar does use a pusher configuration. And I believe this is the only drone made by DJI that has the pusher configuration. So clearly, manufacturer have found some kind of benefit on using a pusher configuration on the Cinewoop. Some people will say that the reason they have all moved to a pusher is that the pusher configuration is a much more stable configuration for flights compared to a puller configuration. Now, I've always wanted to try a puller configuration on one of my drones, but of course that kind of a headache, and until now it wasn't really an easy way to do it, but I finally came out with a way to try both a pusher and a puller configuration on the same drone. Alright guys, so this is the drone that's gonna allow me to try both a pusher and a puller configuration in the same drone. This is one of my personal build, and the thing that makes this build very special is the frame that I use on this build. But before I go over the frame, I'm going to quickly go over the rest of the component that was used for this build, starting with the props. Those are HQ props. They are 3.6-inch props. And the motor I use on this build are the Brother Hobby 2004 motors, and those are 2100 kV motors. As far as the VTX, I'm using a Vista VTX. At this point, I don't think I need to introduce this VTX. It should be very familiar to most of you guys. And the camera I'm using with the Vista is the Cadex Nebula. Pretty good camera. And again, no point to introduce this camera. Everybody should be familiar with this camera. As far as the stack I use on this build, I'm using the Darton Mamba stack 20x20. I have the flight controller is the F7 Mini, and the ESC I'm using is the 4-in-1 40 amp 6S capable ESC. By the way guys, this is a 6S build. And for the antenna, I'm using the Flyfish RC antenna. And for the receiver, if you someone who's familiar with my channel, I am a big fan of Express LIs. Let's talk about the frame. This frame is made by a company named Power D. I'm not very familiar with this company. It seems to be one of those new Chinese drone companies. I have the impression there's a new one that pop out pretty much every month now. But the one thing D Power did is that they have designed a very clever frame that lets you use either a pusher or a puller configuration. Right now I have it set up on a pusher configuration, and the reason I want to be primarily flying it as a pusher configuration because I already have a 3.5 freestyle drone. That's the one that I showed earlier in the video. So I have this guy as a pusher configuration, but if I wanted to flip it to a puller, the only thing I wanted to do is, of course, flip it around and just turn the front camera cage around, and also swap this landing skid with the antenna mounts, and that will make it a puller configuration. And of course, I'm gonna have to reconfigure my flight controller because right now it is set up for a pusher configuration. I'm gonna have to make sure that everything is switched for a puller. Now, going over the dimension of this frame, and by the way, the name of the frame is the Dwarf Falcon 36. There is a Dwarf Falcon 40. The 36 is for the 3.6 version, and the 40 is for the 4-inch version, so you can have it on either 3.6 or 4-inch version. The frame is actually pretty good, even though it's coming for a pretty much unknown company that made it. The dimension of the frame are also, you got the arm, those are 4mm thick arms, and if you look at those arms, they are on top, one is on top of the other one. So what happened is that your front motor, depending on how you have it set up, gonna be either lower or higher than your back motors. The bottom plate's gonna be this plate right here. It is 2mm thick. The middle plate is also 2mm thick. So is the bottom plate, or the top plates, depending on how you have it set up, is also 2mm thick. Carbon look of pretty good quality. Nothing negative to say about the carbon. The build was actually very simple build. The frame was pretty easy to put together. It does come with a little schematic that shows where everything goes. And another thing that I found very interesting about this frame is that all the screws are actually M3 screws. Yeah, usually with the frame of this size, they usually end up using either 2mm or 1.5mm screws. But on this frame, everything is M3 screws. As far as stack goes, you have the option to use either a 20x20 or a 25x25 ARO. And in the back, you do have enough space for your VTX. Also, you can use a Cadex V-Star or HD0 or Worksnell also, because let me show you here, you do have a 20x20 and 25x25 hole, so you pretty much can use any VTX you want to. I would say the frame was primarily designed for a DJI O3 air unit, so if you want, you can slap a DJI O3 air unit on this frame. Alright folks, so we're going to be taking the flight on a puller setup. As you can see, I'm using a 726S Gen B LaPo. My LaPo setup is not the best in the puller position, and that is primarily because I have built this drone to be a pusher, and hopefully nothing gonna go crazy as we're flying. Alright. And I'm not expecting anything different on the puller since I'm used to this configuration. The drone acting fine. Hopefully my LaPo is not gonna cap out on me because it is a little cold, as we all know. In cold weather, LaPo don't do the best. But I can say so far, flying great. By the way, I'm using Betaflight 4.4 and I'm using preset tune That's my daughter coming. Flying great.
You don't think you can fly that friend?
Why did you forget?
Get her a piggyback back.
Yeah, there's horses over there. We're gonna let the horse alone. So my daughter finally leaving. Flight time so far, I'm getting close to 4 minutes, which is actually pretty good for a 3.5. I keep saying 3.5. This is actually 3.6 drone. And I have to say those 2004 motors are actually doing pretty good. I cannot tell, maybe too much for 3.6 pops. They're actually doing great. Drone is very responsive. Getting some low bat there. This 6 is actually doing pretty good. Very responsive. Flying great. And I think I said earlier, I completely forgot. I may have said that the preset I'm using is I think it's a freestyle. It's a 3.4 preset on Betaflight. That's pretty much all I've been using on my 3-inch drone, and even my Cine Whoop seem to be doing pretty good. What are we doing battery wise? Battery is still pretty good. As you have seen, guys. I mean, I am now babying this guy. We did a bunch of flips, and right now battery is getting to the 3.4. So I'm gonna come and land, and we're gonna switch it to the pusher configuration. Folks, so we have the pusher configuration on the drone. So let's take it out for a spin and see it's gonna be flying. One thing I'm gonna be paying attention to is how much thrust, how much torque I'm getting from the motor, if it's going to be different than the puller configuration. And I'm also going to be checking on the efficiency, see if I'm going to be getting more flight time. According to the maker of the frame, D-Power, they advise you to use the puller configuration if you're going to be using the drone mostly for freestyle, and the pusher configuration if you're going to be using it for cruising and if you are really after longer flight time. So let's see how it's going to go. The sound is about the same so far. Let's see, let's go for a little power loop. I'll say actually noise wise, I'll say actually does make a little more noise. It sounds like it is slightly a little more noisier. But as far as flying, it seems to be flying the same. It's flying the same. Let's see if we can get some prop wash. No prop wash. Now, of course, the biggest issue with having the drone as a pusher with no prop guard is in case of a crash. No, I think I may have got a little bit of prop wash in there, maybe. But as far as flying, it is. I mean, I'm not seeing any difference in power or torque. The drone seems to be making the exact same amount of thrust. A little bit of prop wash there. But overall, it is flying good. But I would say it is slightly a little more noisier than when it was in the puller configuration. I don't know, maybe the reason is because that's just me speculating here. There is nothing stopping. Oh, it's flying great. There is nothing stopping, on a puller configuration. You got the harm that, I don't know. That's just me talking. But it is flying great as a puller. And it is also flying great as a pusher. I mean, I'm not really seeing any major difference as far as thrust go. And of course, that is something you may check if you have a little thrust machine, puller versus pusher. But as far as flying goes, it is flying stable. Not really seeing anything as far as torque goes. Now, efficiency wise, I think in a puller configuration, I got close to, I think it was a little bit over 5 minutes. How much we got now? We're getting about 3 minutes and 30 minutes. 3 minutes and 30 seconds. I think I said 3 minutes and 30 minutes. We're getting a little bit of prop wash, but it's nothing annoying. But it's catching itself pretty good. I thought I would see a major difference between puller and pusher. But I'm actually not seeing it. I'm not feeling it. It is flying just like it did with the puller. As far as being more stable, I don't know. They both were pretty stable. Maybe that may be, I gotta give credit to, I think it's Superfly preset. So I'm using the Superfly 3 and 4 inch presets. I've been using it pretty much on all my Cine Whoop that run Betaflight. And on my other 3.5 inch drone, which is the Betafly X Night, work pretty good. I mean, let's see how much battery I have. I would say flight time may be about the same. Those are the same battery, same age. Catching is here pretty good. Alright, so we're going down. Yeah, I'll say flat time is about the same. Oop. Let me land. Well, let's see. Pusher versus puller. As far as I can tell, on this specific drone with a frame that was specifically designed to run on either pusher and puller, there is really not that much difference between the two configurations. That's just for my little testing. They're both flying great. Alright guys, so time to conclude our little test. Let me take this battery out. Now, those are my conclusion. As far as a puller versus pusher configuration goes, on this build, I really didn't notice any difference between the two different configurations. I didn't notice any major difference as far as torque goes, and as far as flight time was pretty much the same, which is kind of disappointing because I was hoping I would get slightly longer flight time in a pusher configuration. This is just me speculating here, and I think there is a couple reasons why I didn't notice any major difference between pusher or puller. The first one has to do with the frame I'm using. This is the Dwarf Falcon 36, designed by Deep Power. And I think while designing this frame, the designer of this frame took into consideration the fact that it's going to be used both as a pusher or as a puller. The prop don't really move as much in either configuration, either pusher or puller. The prop pretty much stay in about the same position, so that does not affect the center of gravity of the drone. They were nice enough to give you the option to mount the battery either side. So I would say the center of gravity is actually not affected no matter what configuration you flying this guy on. The props stay in about the same position relative to the rest of the drone. As a result, you're not really seeing or feeling any difference no matter what configuration you use. The second reason I would say it may be just my flight characteristic, the way I fly the drone. I'm not a very aggressive flyer. I'm more of a cruiser and kind of a smooth or slow flyer. So maybe someone who is more of an aggressive flyer, they'll be able to actually see or notice any difference between the puller or a pusher. As far as I'm concerned, there is no much of a difference. If you're interested on getting this frame, it is available on AliExpress. I got this guy for $55, and I think the 4-inch version is slightly more expensive. That was pretty much all I had to say about this little guy. I am gonna let you go, guys. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.